Normally, I record the patch notes reading the day before the patch notes drop from the advanced draft that the community managers send to the community contributors. But apparently, when I recorded my reading last night, I had my microphone muted, so it's completely useless and I can't put it on YouTube. Therefore, today, we are actually reading the more colorful and finalized version of the patch notes. Welcome to the dramatic reading of the July 2025 patch notes for World of Warships Legends. There's a lot to cover here. It took me 28 minutes on my first try. Let's see how long we go this time. We're going to start with the campaign. The question has been answered. The campaign is called Forward for Freedom Campaign, and the reward is the Tier 8 Premium Battleship USS Wisconsin, along with a special skin for her with a variety of other rewards. Wisconsin excels with a main battery that offers great accuracy and range, further boosted by main battery reload booster with infinite charges. Now, for those of you who don't know, I have USS Wisconsin on PC. In fact, I think I've got a video of it from PC on my channel. It's got a gimmick called Combat Instructions there, which essentially you land enough shells on a target, you fill up a meter. When the meter's full, you press a button, and you have a main battery reload booster, along with a cooldown bonus of 80% on all your consumables. That cooldown bonus of 80% on all the consumables is a little bit overpowered, and that does not seem to be present on the Wisconsin in Legends, which is probably a good thing. Now, the unlimited main battery reload booster, I don't know what to think of that. I suppose that's a substitution for the lack of the combat instructions gimmick. And probably some people will not necessarily be thrilled to hear that this battleship with excellent accuracy has an unlimited main battery reload booster. The key question in my mind, which is not answered in these patch notes or in this infographic, is what's the cooldown on this infinite main battery reload booster? How many times can we actually use it in a 15-minute battle? That will be interesting to see, and I suppose we'll have to wait until Monday to find out. Anyway, to obtain Wisconsin, complete the 100 milestone campaign over 5 weeks with active Admiralty backing starting June 30th. Of course, the catch-up mechanic is there. And here's a breakdown of all the rewards you get. I don't think they're worth going over in detail. I'm sure it's nothing crazy. But those of you who are upset about 6-week campaigns should be happy to see that this one is only going to be 5 weeks. The cost, as usual, for the Admiralty backing is 2,500 doubloons. That hasn't changed at all. Moving on, next section, Independence Day 2025, new U.S. ships and skins. Celebrate the 4th of July with new U.S. ships. Legendary tier cruiser Puerto Rico. I kind of thought Puerto Rico would end up being the campaign ship just because Preußen, a battleship that's pretty accurate, super accurate, you might say, was the last campaign. And so I didn't think they'd follow it up with another ultra-accurate battleship like Wisconsin. I thought instead we might be seeing Puerto Rico, but it turns out that they're adding Puerto Rico anyway, along with Tier 6 premium battleship West Virginia 44, which I believe will be a version of West Virginia that you can build for secondaries and brawling. Plus great new skins and more. From June 30th to August 4th, collect Independium. Oh boy, it's back. Independium, a special currency that you can use to get Puerto Rico, skins inspired by the U.S. Great White Fleet, and other items. You can earn Independium through the Forward for Freedom campaign and calendar, or you can find it in the Steel and Stars random bundle, which can also drop the West Virginia 44. More details coming tomorrow. So this Puerto Rico and West Virginia, this is going to be like a Louisiana situation. I don't know if all of you are around, last year, but when Louisiana was initially released, it was obtainable by Independium. Now, I can't remember the exact parameters, but I'm pretty sure you could grind out a certain amount of Independium, but you had to pay doubloons to get all the necessary Independium required for Louisiana. And I assume it'll be the same situation with Puerto Rico. I bet you can grind enough Independium to get West Virginia 44 for free, but I doubt you can for Puerto Rico. We'll have to look at the details of the upcoming article to know for sure. This is just speculation on my part, but I think it's a reasonable assumption given history. Anyway, up next, Louisiana Bureau Project. Louisiana is back. They were not lying when they said it would come back next summer as a free bureau project. It's next summer, and it comes back as a free bureau project. Of course, the Louisiana is perfectly balanced, and you can see that on a video that I made recently. It would be a good bureau project to start. The thing is quite overpowered and not great for the game, but when you're the one playing it, well, it certainly feels fun to dominate other players, I suppose. Anyway, doesn't look like there's anything crazy in this one for the Louisiana. It's a free bureau project. You can start it when the update drops. Next up, Star Trek returns to Legends. Starting June 30th, discover new Tier 8 cruiser, USS Voyager, the Borg Queen's diamond skin for Yamato, and new commanders, Riker, Janeway, Worf, and the Borg Queen. Look for content from both collaboration waves in the store and in the Replicator Crate number 2. Two of these crates will be available for free, one through the campaign and another through the To the Delta Quadrant and Back mission. Commander Riker will also be available for free during the new number 1 calendar. More details, of course, in a dedicated article tomorrow. Then Hindenburg Marathon, the final stage. The final stage of the marathon has begun. Don't miss your chance to get German legendary tier cruiser Hindenburg. During the third stage of the marathon, running from June 30th to August 4th, you can collect ship parts from the following sources. Forward for Freedom campaign, 2,500 without the Admiralty backing, and an additional 4,500 with the Admiralty backing. Number 1 calendar, 3,000. Weekly assignments, 3,000. Bonus before purchasing doubloons in the store. Quite a bit of bonuses, but of course they say the ship parts are always free, including bundles in the store where they are granted as a quote-unquote bonus. Any unused ship parts will expire without compensation after the marathon ends. So if you are going to spend money obtaining ship parts to get Hindenburg, which frankly I wouldn't recommend, Hindenburg is a good ship, but I personally, if I didn't already have it, I wouldn't spend any more money than the Admiralty backing requires, because I would buy the Admiralty backing anyway, and if I couldn't grind out enough ship parts without spending money and just going through the Admiralty backing and the rest of the free sources, well, I wouldn't be spending any money to get Hindenburg. It's good, but I don't think it's worth spending money, and definitely don't spend money on these doubloon packages to get extra ship parts in the hopes that they will be converted to credits after the marathon ends, because that is absolutely not the case. Anyway, Bastille Day 2025 from July 14th through the 28th. Join Bastille Day celebrations with plenty of themed content in the store, including discounted French ships. Don't forget to claim the free Bastille 25 bundle, which contains a special flag and unlocks missions for French camos and patches. Another dedicated article coming July 14th on the Bastille Day 25 stuff. Next up, perhaps the part of this update that is most exciting to me, honestly, Commander presets. Take a look at Boss Dewey here. He's got preset 1 with these skills selected, and preset 2 with these. Welcome to Commander Presets, a new feature that lets you create skill and inspiration setups for your commander. You can save 2 presets for free, and a third is available while premium account is active, of course. Presets can be easily switched before each battle. This is not quite what the community has been asking for many years, which is to have ship-specific commander builds. But with this new preset ability, effectively you can have ship-specific commander builds on the same commander. Only you can do up to 3, and that's it. But I feel like that should be probably sufficient for most cases and most ships. I can certainly see use cases where I'm going to build a commander one way for a couple of ships in the line and then another way for some others. This is really good. This has been missing from the game for years and years on end. It's about time they added it. I honestly, this is really nice to see. This is perhaps the best part of these patch notes. Then we've got ranked battles featuring tier 5, tier 6, and then tier 7 ships. You can get some crates, credits, camos, commander progression items, boosters, CVs not allowed in the ranked. Then some more seasons of brawls. The first one featuring only tier 5 battleships. The second one featuring only tier 6 cruisers. Of course, they have various crazy mechanics. Plus, at some point in each battle, you'll be given the choice between offensive and defensive combat orders, which apparently are these things here: experimental shells and battle repair. Just a goofy game mode, I suppose. Of course, Dutch cruisers are not allowed in the brawl for the tier 6 cruisers from July 31st to August 4th. I wonder why that might be. So strange. Anyway, balance changes would be up next, but we're going to go over to the Ministry of Balance article for that. And let me tell you, there's a lot of them. Before we get there, though, historical camo for Rodney. A historical camo for Rodney is here. The new permanent camo is based on the pattern applied to HMS Rodney during World War II, inspired by the Admiralty disruptive pattern. Starting June 30th, all Rodney owners, including those who obtain her after that date, will be able to craft the new permanent camo using paint. And I certainly will, as soon as it comes to the game. And then, another kind of nice thing to see, ships for Global XP. Starting July 14th, visit the store to find 3 premium ships that will be available for Global XP for the first time. Pan-European Tier 4 battleship Viribus Unitis, Japanese Tier 5 battleship, Mutsu, and French Tier 3 battleship Turenne. These ships will remain available for Global XP indefinitely after the update ends. I kind of wondered if they were done with Global XP ships, but it appears they are not. Now, none of these are particularly high-tier Global XP ships, but it's nice to see. Especially, I know some people will be very interested in Mutsu, having 16-inch guns at Tier 5. The other two, not really familiar with. I don't like Mutsu all that much, but I recognize why some people might really enjoy the ship. So that's probably a good one to get. As for the rest of this is just, various bug fixes and improvements that I don't think are worth covering in detail. So, at this point, we'll go to the Ministry of Balance and cover the changes here. There are a lot. So, we'll just start at the top and begin with Legendary Tier. Note that Henri is the only thing that appears in Legendary Tier. Suspiciously, we see nothing about the Louisiana or Gdansk, both of which need nerfs, but apparently they're not coming. Legendary Tier instead will see a buff to Henri IV. Main battery reload time reduced from 13 to 10.5 seconds. Should make Henri IV a little bit more potent. I think the ship is fine as is, but I guess it's going to get a little bit better. And then, Tier 8, number of things happening there. Velos gets another buff. Main battery reload reduced from 2.5 to 2.2. Torpedo reload time reduced to 45 seconds. Yep, okay. Concealment reduced marginally by about 1/10 of a kilometer. Little buff for Velos. Should make it even better, I suppose. Then Rune, a ship that I don't have, but I hear is in need of buffs. Upgraded main battery reload time reduced by a second. Stock and upgraded HE Alpha increased to 3,000. Main battery turret traverse decreased to 16.4. Rudder shift decreased to 10.6. Temeraire stock main battery reload reduced to 27. Same thing for upgraded. I don't know why they bother saying both stock and upgraded when they're literally the same thing. I don't think we need 2 bullet points here, whoever's writing the Ministry of Balance article. Just put it in one, Frederick de Grossa. Stock and main battery shell grouping increased by 5.5% from 1.8 to 1.9 sigma. Secondary battery range at base increased to 7.5. DCP consumable duration increased to 15. Okay, well, FDG, nice little buff there. Drake added propulsion mod. Wow, I thought the propulsion mod was supposed to be built into these heavy cruisers. Apparently not, but now we get to use it. Oh, look at this. Dutch cruiser nerf. Johan de Witt. Airstrike maximum bomb reduced to 5,300. Airstrike restoration time increased to 95. Well, those are the unupgraded. So 5,600, 90 seconds. I don't know if that's quite enough to solve the issue, but they definitely needed a nerf. And so a nerf is coming, just not to Howden Lu, I suppose, or Louisiana, or Gdansk, all of which also need nerfs. Anyway, moving on, Delaware. Look at this, hybrid, tier 8, not the legendary tier though. Delaware, main battery reload increased to 32. Sigma reduced from 1.9 to 1.85, and then airstrike torpedo speed reduced by 5 knots. Don't know if that will solve the problem with the hybrids either, but they did need a nerf. All of them, not just the Delaware and ending it at tier 8, but hey, it's a step in the right direction. Dmitry Donskoy, the agile, well, this doesn't matter. I don't even know why bother saying this. They're just changing the description of the ship. Doesn't affect the performance. On to tier 7. Oh boy, USS Enterprise. CV gets a buff. Torpedo speed and torpedo damage increased. Not a fan of CV buffs, but who knows? Maybe the Enterprise needed it. Rochester. Oh, that could certainly use a buff. Main battery firing range increased marginally. Main battery reload time reduced by 2 seconds. 180-degree turn time or turret traverse reduced by nearly 5 seconds. And rudder shift reduced by a little over a second. Otago and Otago B. Wow. Oh, and Prinz Eugen, too. Never thought we'd see the day that Prinz Eugen got some love. But Otago. Main battery turret traverse, 29 to 25.7 seconds. Reload reduced to 14. HE Alpha buffed from 3,300 to 3,500. I thought the Otago was more or less fine as is, but should be interesting to try it out with this new buff in place. It'll be a little bit more potent. I think, honestly, it's still a good ship, even in its current state, so now it will be even better. Prinz Eugen. Main battery reload booster consumable updated. Moved from slot 2 to slot 3. Number of charges of the consumable increased from 1 to 2. I thought it already had 2. It only had 1, though. Interesting. Consumable duration increased from 15 to 20 seconds. AP Shell Alpha increased to 6K. HE Shell Alpha increased to 2,700. About time Prinz Eugen saw some kind of buff. Maybe it'll be a little bit more playable now. Northern Dragon. This thing is a copy-paste Akizuki, which was completely useless because prior to this buff, the HE shells only penetrated 17 millimeters. At tier 7, which is where this destroyer sits, every single destroyer at that tier has 19 millimeters of armor, and all the superstructure on all of the battleships, and I think all of the cruisers, is also 19 millimeters. So quite literally, this HE could pen nothing. Now it can pen 30, just like the Akizuki. That should make it a lot better. And also the HE Shell Alpha is buffed to 1800. AP shells now have a flatter arc. AP shell penetration increased by 58%. Okay. And then AP shell damage increased by about 150 points. Northern Dragon might be a nasty little ship after this buff. Probably worth checking out again, honestly. And then Key. Look at this here. Secondary battery range increased to 7 km. Dispersion for the 100 millimeter guns reduced and increased for the 140s. So smaller guns become a little more accurate. They become a little less accurate for the larger. Secondary HE shell pen increased to 30 millimeters on the 100 millimeter guns and 35 on the 140s. These are like German secondary numbers. They'll actually pen a lot then and do real significant damage. Okay. Secondary battery reload time increased by a second for the 100 millimeter guns, decreased by 2 for the 140s. Torpedo range increased to 8 km. Enhanced secondary targeting consumable moved from slot 3 to slot 4. Okay, so with Key then, it can now be built as a secondary focused IJN brawler. That should be interesting. I'll be curious to set it up that way and try it out. Differentiates it from the Amagi quite a bit more instead of just having the torpedoes and really nothing else going for it to be a huge difference. So this is interesting. I kind of like this change. Lenin. This gets a 180 millimeter thick ring added between the gun and the barbette, but the changes won't have any meaningful impact on the ship's performance. Okay. Iowa. Buff. Wow. Okay. Well, Wisconsin coming to the game. The other Iowa-class battleships, I guess, need a buff. Iowa gets its proper speed of 33 knots, and the hull side plating of the torpedo protection is increased from 25 to 38 millimeters. All right, so Iowa. Wow. Old ship here from the beginning, finally getting a buff. But we reach the best part of this Ministry of Balance article. Look at this Vanguard. This is the most glorious buff in the history of World of Warships Legends. Buff Guard, the most buffed ship in the history of ships. Main battery reload booster consumable. Number of charges increased from 1 to 2. Oh my god, it's not just a one-off gimmick anymore. Now you can do it twice in one battle on HMS Buff Guard. This is the best thing to ever happen to this game. All right. Moving on, Split. Look at this. Pan-European destroyer Nerfs, but Split, not Ketsonis, not Gdansk. Split main battery reload time increased by half a second. Turret traverse increased by about 2 seconds, 2.1 seconds. Okay, well, still needs a little bit more work, I think. Albemarle propulsion mod. Dutch cruiser Haarlem. Airstrike damage decreased. Reload time on airstrikes increased, just like the Johann de Witt. Nebraska main battery reload time increased. Torpedo speed decreased. So they are nerfing the Dutch cruisers and the hybrids, except for the legendary tier 1s. That is good and unfortunate at the same time. Vladivostok gets that same thing that Lenin gets, which won't have any meaningful impact on the ship's performance. Then we're down to Tier 6. Kasac, torpedo reload time reduced to 65. Speed on torps increased to 67. Cossack 38 gets a main battery range buff, as well as a torpedo reload buff. And then the smoke screens, I think basically this means it gets 6 of the conventional British smokes. And then it gets the sonar consumable added to slot 4 with 3 charges. Typical British sonar. Maybe Cossack 38 will be a little bit more worth playing now. I guess we'll have to check it out again, even though I wish one of these Cossacks was at Tier 7. It would be a fantastic Tier 7 premium British destroyer, but maybe someday. Surrey propulsion mod added. Eendracht, same buff as the rest. Connecticut, or same nerf, I mean, as the rest. Nerf to the bomb damage, nerf to the reload time. Connecticut. Nerf to the main battery AP damage. And then Tier 5, Independence gets a buff to the accuracy of the aiming circle, and the aircraft HP is increased. Well, fair enough. I didn't know Independence needed a buff, but apparently it did. Tennessee, main battery reload time increased to 32 seconds. Okay. Devonshire, propulsion mod. Emile Bertin. Emile Bertin is honestly an annoying Tier 5, Tier 4 cruiser. I mean, sometimes when you shoot that thing, you just get overpens because French black hole armor, I suppose. But it is getting a nerf. The main battery shell damage is reduced. So is the penetration. Or no, the penetration is increased while the damage is reduced. and the fire chance is reduced. So a little bit of a nerf to Emile Bertin. Interesting. Then Turenne, the new GXP Tier 3 battleship, gets a little bit of a buff to the range, buff to the reload, and the armor was updated, whatever that means. And then to finish things off for the ships, Tier 1, Ninoixio. Okay, well, that gets a buff. Now it has a 9-second reload and 1900 on the HE Shell Alpha. Wow, apparently Ninoixio was just underperforming compared to the other Tier 1 cruisers. Okay, well, it gets a buff. How nice. And then Commanders. As you can see, no nerf to the Fox Flare skill. Where is that, Wargaming? Where is the nerf to Fox Flare? However, a nerf to Risk Theory, which I said immediately from the beginning was OP. They have reduced the maximum detectability time after firing the main battery guns, the reduction to that to 20% max instead of 30. I think you'll still be able to reduce that time to absurd levels, even with that percentage, if you combine Lemonnier as an inspiration, and if, God forbid, you also combine Lightful. However, I probably wouldn't use both of them. I'd use Lemonnier and then Mikawa, because having better concealment is better than being able to go dark that quickly, and that buff is more than enough. Karel Dorman also gets a bunch of skills added. I can't remember what any of these do off the top of my head. So, some good stuff here in the balance changes, some missing stuff for sure. But all in all, an interesting update, especially with the Commander presets, and I am curious to see how USS Wisconsin will perform in World of Warships Legends. So, I guess we'll have to see on Monday. Hope you enjoyed this video. If you did enjoy this dramatic reading of the patch notes, be sure to give the video a thumbs up, consider subscribing if you haven't already, and I'll see you next time. Goodbye.